So, yeah, I mean, to me, obviously, there's judgment and I would say moral concerns about running for MPP. I I can't say Cornel West is such a smart guy, but then kind of give him an out that maybe he just didn't look up MPP. You would think he kind of knows a lot of the reporting that has been done over the last year, which, you know, has been from us predominantly, that the head of MPP was under investigation for sexual harassment, that he essentially purged 5 board members who were recommending punishments for him because they found accusations credible, that the head of the organization, Nick Brana, those recommendations were going to be that he has to be stripped of management responsibilities for 6 months, that he would have to undergo anger management, sensitivity management, sexual harassment training beyond the concerning sexual harassment or those kind of allegations there. And to be clear, Zaina Day, who worked at Status Coup for a bit, in her words, there was also assault that took place that she accused him of when she worked there, and they had a consensual relationship. There was also a lot of other really, really suspect things that went on, which maybe you should remind people what your experience was with MPP as a volunteer there.
So this is all so very tricky, right? Because people are starving for something that is going to be outside of what right now they're presented with. So it is not an easy task to be like, I don't know about this plan we have going here. And I've gotten my fair share of criticism for, daring to say it out loud. But, 3 years ago, and it's literally been that long now, it's been over 3 years since this all went down, like almost 3 years since this all went down, when I jumped on board with MPP and really wanted to get involved in the third party movement and to try and grow a third party. It was with the full understanding that it needed to be about people, right? And Dr. West does a great job of presenting this in that video, doing the whole rise up thing. But he's doing it with an organization that does not use people properly. And you can't, I can't take that seriously when I know that MPP has had multiple rounds of purging volunteers and members for deigning to speak up, when 2 sets of Black voter groups left the organization, one from purge, one from leaving because of mistreatment, when you have multiple instances of, awful memes and conversations happening in Slack that are totally misrepresentative of a group that's supposed to be for people, when it's run at the top by a person who, rather than deal with the organization and what was going on when there was an accusation happening, chose instead to remove the board members who were speaking against, who were speaking up for those who were trying to get help and get represented. When you have all of these things in play, it is very hard to cheer for anyone who decides to stand with that organization. It's important that people understand that the People's Party, one, is not a party. They don't have ballot access. They are a minor party in Florida. They are a PAC in Virginia. They literally don't have the pathway to run for a presidential campaign, because they keep getting rid of people every time there is an opportunity based on whatever's happening in that moment. When they bring people into their movement, you turn around and everyone's been purged, everyone left. This is literally either the 4th or the 5th ideation of this organization that's happening right now. And although I appreciate, again, that people want something different. I mean, I want something different, right? I left them. I now just found out that I'm an independent, because apparently Green Party in New Jersey is no longer an actual political party recognized by the state of New Jersey. So I'm now an independent. I want something different too. But you can't jump on the one thing that's different just because it's different without acknowledging all the problems that are coming along with that thing. That's how we got here, right? If you're going to say, I want to go with a third party because I want to break the duopoly, you cannot do that by working within a party that behaves the way the duopoly behaves, right? If they're working in secrecy, if they're working without transparency and democracy, if they're working against the interests of the people that are working within their party, if they're purging people, if they're not organizing on the ground and with real people who are trying to change their material conditions, where is that different from what we already have? That's not the path to difference. That's not the path to change. And I'm sure people don't like to hear it. And I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but if there's not going to be a serious change within that organization, we'll be a year and a half from now looking back at what happened when they tried to run a candidate and couldn't get their ballot access. And everyone's going to be like, well, what happened? What happened is exactly what I'm trying to prepare people for. If they don't change something, if they don't become real about pursuing this effort of actually having a party, if they don't engage with voters, if they don't talk to volunteers, if they don't stop purging people for asking questions, if they don't stop acting like bigots, they are going to have a problem.
I wanted to ask one particular thing on the race matter. I mean, obviously, Cornel West is one of the most infamous African-American scholars and, I would say political visionaries in America. And from what I could tell, when I first started reporting on Movement for a People's Party, there was a lot of complaints, shall we say, about racial insensitivity, just racism, movement for a white person's party, some people called it, which is problematic, I would say. Obviously, there are more people in People's Party than Nick Brana, but what was your experience? Because from what I remember, there wasn't a whole lot of Black volunteers.
So I came in with a really large group of volunteers who signed up because they did that online convention in late August 2020. That was it was very powerful. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was fully like, this is great. There was a Black Voters for People's Party circle that existed. There were multiple Black volunteers that I engaged with in various places, both, within New York State and in the national channel. There was also a lot of tone policing. A lot of the Black people are always complaining. I saw a reminder the other day. One of the leaders said that the Black folks have us by the short hairs. Like this is the kind of commentary that's happening within the Slack. The day before I woke up and found all of my privileges removed from the Slack and from the base camp and all of the organizing tools, there was a very long, unfortunate debate about whether or not white people could use the N-word. It started outside of Slack. It continued within Slack. The argument was basically that as a white person, if you're given an N-word pass, gotta say, I've never given anyone one of those. You're allowed to use it. There were other people who basically believe that since Black people use it, white people should be able to use it. And there was a huge contentious conversation that went on regarding whether or not white people should be at liberty to use the N-word. When I woke in the morning, and I did not actually participate fully in this conversation, I tried to actually call the leadership in to say, can somebody get control of what's about to happen right now? When I woke in the morning, all of my privileges were gone, along with all of the Black people who were participating in that conversation, along with the one white person who was trying to specify that no, white people should not be using the N-word and was called a race traitor for it in the Slack. And another white person who I think they deemed as like the person who started it, But all of the other white people who were staunchly debating and, fighting for their ability to use the N-word, still, for the love of God, I have no idea why this is so important to people. They were allowed to stay on. The person who said there was an N-word pass that they got from somebody, whether that's true or not, we'll never know, was elevated at the next volunteer meeting. All of this was happening while there was a petition that had been written in like a 200 and something volunteers working within the organization to try and make things better. So it's really hard for me to believe that also part of this purge that happened was not because there were too many volunteers who were working together to ask the right questions. If you're asking the right questions and the people you're asking those questions and directing those questions to don't have the right answers, the best thing for them to do is be rid of you. So I saw that as, they were glad to be rid of me, even though I actually wasn't fully part of that conversation. But this was the type of thing that happened. There was some memes that were really, really inappropriate. It was not a healthy space for volunteers, not volunteers of Indigenous, not Native American, not LGBTQIA. Like there was just so much going on in that Slack, and it was not monitored properly. And it was, for me as somebody who I've participated in a lot of organizing strategies. I've been a part of a lot of different organizations. It is very hard when you are trying to be part of something to push for a change and the things that you need to be part of that change are actually happening within the organization. Right? Like I need racism to end, right? I need it to end. But racism is not going to end with an organization that thinks MLK wasn't woke, right? Like who makes jokes about things it can't happen. And so, I'm not sure what's going on. Cornel West has been part of the MPP advisory board for a long time. In his interview today with Kim Iverson, he indicated that he was, part of the founding of the People's Party. I assume he means this iteration of the People's Party that came after the advisory board was created, because the People's Party was not the People's Party. It used to be a Movement for a People's Party, which used to be People for Work and Democracy, which is actually still the the organization that it is. So I don't have an answer for what's happening. I do know that it is if you want to present yourself as a group that is trying to do the red, brown, right, left, that thing, right? Then it would actually work in your favor to put a black face at the front of it. Right, to say like, look, we're bringing this person in, and I can't say that that's the intention. I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what's going on, but I watched that interview and I found some of the statements that Dr. West made about what his plans are to be a little bit concerning as a black person, to be honest. So, I don't, black people are not the large part of the population, but we are the most likely to be killed by police. We're the most incarcerated. We're, part of a group that for our population should not have so many representatives in the unhoused, in the under the poverty level. There are all these things that are happening. And for me, I think what's the most troublesome for me is that someone like Dr. West is giving this organization almost like credence, right? Like it's almost giving them like they know what they're doing, but people need to wait and see if they actually know what they're doing.
It seems like Nick Brana would be kind of front and center. I mean, he was with Cornel West yesterday when this was announced, if you could show that, Colin. So that's Cornel West, I guess, doing an interview with Kim Iverson and Nick Brana in the shot, giving a thumbs up. So it's not like, he's just mentioning People's Party, but like People's Party wouldn't be involved. There is, the chairman of the People's Party, who obviously a lot of people, and I'm not going to hide it, including myself, have issues with. I want to jump in, and I'm not at all minimizing everything you just said, because, I do not minimize any issues when it comes to racism or racial insensitivity. As someone myself who has actually been smeared falsely about, sexual inappropriateness or assault, I take it really seriously. I happen to find the accusations against him credible based on everything I've looked into and I know. But based on my own reporting, totally separate from sexual harassment or assault accusations. To me, when you toss away all of this and you just look at this from a strategic point of view, if Cornel West is going to run third party, which I have no issue with, you don't want it to be a setback for the left. I would be criticizing it a lot less if it was MPP's first congressional candidate or Senate candidate. A presidential candidate, it seems like a big leap. And Nick Brana has never explained how you're going to get ballot access. Not years ago when he still had some credibility before people realized who he is. And I don't see any explanation for how they're going to get ballot access now. So your thoughts?
So this was one of the big issues that we had when we were trying to organize within the state of New York. Was there was nothing put in place to help with that organizing, right? They kept saying, oh, we're working on these documents, we're working on bylaws, we're working on hub practices, we're working on, having like a system put together so that people know how to engage with other voters, how to bring other people into the party, how to participate in meetings, those types of things. None of that really worked out. They did at some point come up with, it was like a procedural document for running hubs and how to get those things going. But it was very messy and didn't actually provide a whole lot of information that was going to be useful at that time. Part of my issue, and it's something that I've said over and over again, is if you are really going to do something that is going to change the status of this country, you have to have people on the ground who are willing to do the work, right? You have to have people all over the country who are organizing for you, who are working for you, who are getting those signatures, who are doing all of those things. Could MPP have a secret cove of, hundreds of thousands of people who are going to do this work to make sure that, these things fall into place? I guess it's possible. It's pretty hard to do when you keep kicking people out every time they ask questions. It's pretty hard to do when you overspend and you spend more money than you're bringing in donations.
$20,000, by the way, they spent of donor money, small dollar donors, for a logo they never ended up using.
Right. It's pretty hard to do when your father is running your finances and he's not an accountant. And when people ask, can you be a little more clear about where the money is going? Let's be a little more transparent so that we can not act like the duopoly. And that gets mocked, right? So all of the things that you brought up are all things that people should be questioning. I believe, and this is just my own theory, that Nick believes that with a strong enough person running for president, that he will be able to parlay that into getting ballot access in multiple states. And then that will allow him to become this party that he has been trying to become now for, we're going on 7 years, I think, that they've been trying to do this. So could it work? Is Dr. West popular enough to do that? Maybe possible, right? Anything's possible. But what happens when you actually have to have people on the ground, right? Like, you get your 10,000 signatures. you're on the ballot, how do you get the word out, right? I think this theory a little bit of the taking votes from the Dems might be a little overstated. A lot of people, a lot of people in these circles, they don't like Democrats, right? They're already sick of it. They already want something different. They already want to vote for somebody who's not part of duopoly. I think you'd be surprised at how many voters just don't vote anymore. And maybe they'll bring some voters out who hadn't, initially intended to go to the polls. That's possible. What I think the bigger thing is that I think people are missing is that MPP has walked away from the left publicly, right? They stated they're no longer progressives. They want to work with the right, right? Like, this is not a progressive party anymore. Per Nick Brana, like, this is not what they want to do anymore. They're
I
tired
think
of
they
the
called
woke,
him a populist party.
right? They're tired of the woke mob mentality. Would be attacked by the woke mob. Like, they're not about all this. Mr. Dr. West may be saying all of these things, but he is representing a party that has said very clearly that they're no longer about these things. They're very much the, all lives matter party, right? The big tent party. There's no tent big enough that is going to give enough room for me to stand next to my oppressor. So good luck with that, right? Like, it's just not going to happen. So again, I understand that people want something different, and I know people are really not happy with me, right? I said it very clearly on my Twitter. I don't have a huge following, which sometimes makes me wonder why people care what I say anyway. But I'm disappointed, and the reason I'm disappointed is because if the People's Party is still the thing that I knew them to be when I got booted out, when I had to circle back to the next set of Black people who had to leave because of the mistreatment, when I had to circle back again because there was accusations of sexual harassment that resulted in people being removed from the party, like, all of those times that I had to circle back, it was always because the same people were in charge.